So, okay, so this is my official welcome to the new moon in Capricorn. And also we just passed the winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere. And Anna from Geneva, Switzerland. Welcome, Anna. And the summer solstice in the Southern Hemisphere. So I've been thinking about, just that wonderful connection we have as a global network of people that are able to connect all around the world, thanks to this amazing technology that we have. But also just, looking, I actually had to do a little research. I like to research in looking at just how the solstices work and, the spin of the earth in relation to all of these planets and the sun's energy and, the whole cycles and how, some of the earth is moving more into the light and some of the earth is moving more into the darker days. But it's always a continual change. And I feel that, it's interesting, and here we're on the earth, at least in the physical body. And we're so influenced by this. So even though we have all of these wonderful advances in what can make us adaptable to our ever-changing environments, we are still very connected to the macro change and the changes that are ongoing. And so I just, really thinking about that with Capricorn. My sun is in Capricorn. Does anybody else have a sun in Capricorn that's on the call? Anyway, well, happy birthday or happy upcoming birthday to you. So I've learned a little bit about Capricorn just with the sun being in Capricorn, but in this actual new moon, not only do we have this new moon in Capricorn and the sun in Capricorn, but we also have 3 other planets. Oh, next week is your birthday to Deborah Donnelly. Okay, happy birthday, Deborah. So we can—
Thank you.
You're welcome. We can share with the joys and the travails of having a Capricorn sun. So
exactly.
I did do a presentation. Again, I like my little short presentations because the focus here is really on the session, but I think that the presentation can actually help to give some context. So I am just going to share my screen if I can quickly figure out how to do that. I have way too many documents open. That would be the Mercury aspect of Capricorn, and we'll just go into that in a moment. So I think everyone can see this, and I'll just put it on. I can also, where is my slideshow? There we are. So this is what I had sent out with the invitation today, very late invitation. Just because it really does give you a very brief introduction to the energy of Capricorn. So I'll just really briefly go over these qualities. Probably many of you are familiar with the qualities. It is an earth element, and Capricorn is earth element, and it's also cardinal, very steadfast. It is the sign of the 10th astrological house. So the 10th house is, it's known as, one of the things anyways, the career house. In some more Eastern astrology, it does bring up some karma with the association with the ruling planet of Saturn. So that may come up, but and I brought in some archetypes, and by no means are these archetypes at the bottom of the screen, they're not limited. But when we look at Capricorn energy, oftentimes, you're looking at later in life in terms of the 10th astrological house. you're looking at sort of, what have I done and how have I been of service and how do I continue to be of service? So when we're looking at ambition, yes, it can be a very focused and driving energy, but often there is this element of how can I be a contribution? That's one of the questions. So, with there's an older type of energy to this, and hence I chose the wise one, or when I chose the wise one as opposed to the wise old man or the wise old woman, because it's by no means limited to a masculine or a feminine archetype. The qualities of Capricorn tend to be more masculine in nature, and its kind of drive and focus and discipline. And then there's the sea goat as the symbol of it. And primarily I think of the goat sort of steadfastly climbing up that mountain, and if there's a little rock fall, it just gets up again and it just keeps on going. And so really that's a great image for the energy of that focus and that careful, steady steps. There's a relationship with time and Capricorn too, because of Saturn, and with, Chronos being more of the ancient symbol of Saturn. There can be these limitations and restrictions, and unquestionably there is an association with responsibility and Capricorn and Saturn. I was thinking again about, well, what is responsibility? Is the ability to respond. And, how do we cultivate that ability to respond? Through experience. So, it does encompass that, the wise one kind of archetype. It can translate into leadership roles. It might be political leaders, not really necessarily associated with Capricorn, but like just leadership in the steadfastness and the responsibility aspects. And then I also included something that, when we think about the word opportunist, it's not always in a positive light. It's like someone who's just looking for an opportunity. But I would say that it's within, any of these qualities, you're always looking at the broad spectrum. So yes, it can be someone that's looking for, oh, there's something going wrong. What can I get out of that? Or, oh dear, this is happening. How can I use resources to actually create an opportunity out of this? So again, it's always, not limiting it to what we refer to in those polarities of positive and negative, but in observing what is possible. So that's my brief introduction to Capricorn. And then I'm going to, I found this, and this is widely available, but I thought I'd share this because it's from Cafe Astrology. So for those of you that like to dive a little bit more into reading about different astrological events, it's a wonderful site, and I did include that the link here because this is part of this new moon chart. I only included part of it because there's just so many things that are going on, as always with astrology, and I just felt that it would be more focused for us to focus on the 5 planets that are in Capricorn. So at the very top, you see the Capricorn symbol. And even though Pluto and Mercury look like they're actually in Aquarius, there are these little lines that actually draw them into the Capricorn area there in that chart. So, and also notable here is that both the new moon and the sun in Capricorn are at 1 degree. So it's definitely like a new beginning kind of energy for both, and that they're both at 1 degree also amplifies the connection here of these planets. And that's what I'm going to go into a little bit. So we have these, the moon, the sun, Venus, Mercury, and Pluto in Capricorn. So what I chose to do was just look at these, and in a way you can think of if you think of like Venus as a character, well, that's pretty easy for most of us to do, right? Like the archetypal energy of Venus is, you know, the goddess of love and harmony, loves beauty. So Venus has just walked into the house of Capricorn. So, you know, what does that mean, right? Well, what are those qualities I was just talking about? Discipline and steadfastness. And so I just kind of looked at that and looked at what the potential of that would be, using Capricorn's responsibility to others, to service, to bring harmony. You know, so that's just one potential of the archetypal energy in its manifestation. And of course, when you have the sun in Capricorn, when you have the sun in anything, it's all about really shining a light on that, shining a light on those qualities, on those archetypal energies. So that's just, you know, expanding the energy of Capricorn. That's why we say we're in the sign of Capricorn at this time. And then the new moon represents these new beginnings. And because the new moon has, the moon itself just has more to do with our intuition, our emotions. There may be some more intuitive insight into the Capricorn aspects of our vision or our goals. With Mercury in Capricorn, so personally, I feel like I'm feeling this, and Mercury in my birth chart is in Capricorn. It's like, what is Mercury? It's communication, 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 and sharing information. And often it can be a bit scattered. So, you know, you think about Capricorn is very focused, then perhaps this is like helping to take that level of communication and bring it into focus to share that with others. And then finally, Pluto. And so, you know, Pluto always gets the bad rap, right? It's like, because it's so transformational, and it often is about revealing things that we had buried. But within this, you know, the other thing about Capricorn is that it wants stability. It wants to seek stability. Sometimes that can be a little too excess. Like, you know, it's like there might be some greed, or and when I'm talking stability and we're looking at Earth, we're talking about that material stability. I want something very firm underneath my feet, kind of thing. So with Pluto, Pluto is all about transformation. So when Pluto walks in, Pluto's like, what do we need to change here? You know, like what's not working, and what are your motives in this? And do we need to bring something up to actually help to transform, you know, the way you're seeing things? And this is definitely, you know, can be in our personal lives, but it also can be what's going to be happening around us. So I just felt that it would be perhaps interesting to you, because it was interesting to me to explore those 5 planets within this new energy. So that is my introduction. Oh, and I did want to actually share something else too, but I'm going to stop sharing this. So I wanted to say, thank you, Sherry. I'm glad you like my presentation. And I really, and Dex is a Capricorn. Happy birthday, Dex. I love doing these birthday things, these birthday call outs. Thank you for loving my presentation. That's really helpful. So one of the things that I wanted to say thank you to those of you that have actually given me feedback, because, you know, we're actually talking about sort of this responsiveness, right? So if you ever want to send me an email and tell me what you like or what you're not so clear on, I really appreciate it, because I just love this community. And the more feedback you give me, the better able I am to respond in that way, right? So let's see what the new moon in Capricorn has to surface for us in terms of a body talk balancing. And if you'd like to take a few deep breaths, and I will as well, and see if I can come down a little bit from my chocolate brownie high. Okay. So yeah, a few deep breaths. There's another aspect of Capricorn that is coming in right now. And often Capricorn, again, it depends on sort of the school of astrology that you're gaining information from, but often Capricorn is associated with a paternal figure or father figure. So once again, this can be sort of more personal, or it can also be paternalistic. Those patriarchal, and certainly patriarchal structures when we're looking at Capricorn and Saturn, and often the rigidity of those structures. And this can then, bringing it sort of home, can be the rigidity in rules that you're supposed to follow in your family and those kind of traditions. And is it time for a change on those, or how have they impacted you? So again, just some thoughts are coming in as I'm tapping into this energy. Okay. So I'm just, I need to actually go into well, I don't need to, but I'm choosing to go into Mindscape because it's just a fun place to be. So when I go into Mindscape, Sylvia Musniak, some of you may be familiar with her as a past instructor of the BodyTalk system, who co-wrote many of the manuals with Dr. John Beltime. She played a very large role in shaping the development of the BodyTalk system. And I've taken a few courses with Sylvia. She teaches her own system now. I believe it's called Helio Soul, and which of course is drawing from the energy of the sun and some archetypal energies. So when I go into Mindscape, Sylvia is there. And Sylvia, I took an advanced Mindscape course with Sylvia, and I also took my first course ever with Sylvia back in 2004, and it was a Mindscape course. So I'm just sharing this with you because it seems to be like her energy is very supportive to what is going to come up in this first part. It's like she's coming in some way, not necessarily as a matrix holder, but certainly as a resource satellite for the first formula. And qualities of Sylvia that are coming in this resource formula are very, very Capricornian. They are her focus and her dedication and her steadfastness. Despite challenges. And so those are qualities that she is representing at an archetypal level for your first formula and this balancing here. So then I invite the energy of the group in. And so we go into my library, and my library is very much for those of you that have seen Harry Potter and have gone into the wizard's office, which has many, many books, and it's very, very high walls of books. And so my library is very much like that. I even have a phoenix that continues to transform in it. So this is where everyone is entering in. And one of the things that the library has come to represent is access to knowledge and wisdom. And there's also a very alchemic, an alchemic transformative energy that is coming in. And so Saturn is also coming in. The archetype of Saturn is coming in, and it is the paradox of restriction and resourcefulness. So when I call it a paradox, it's that, you know, when we perceive restriction, that we are limited because of rules or, you know, even if there are physical barriers, the resourcefulness and creativity will help us to find another way. And it's often because of this restrictions that forces more creativity. And so that is really what's coming up. It's, you know, when we have everything, it's easy. And there's no challenge to create because it's right there. But when we don't have everything and we're limited, it's when creativity can really actually shine through and intuition can really shine through. So it's this paradox that's coming up for, it's like a consciousness of separation of this concept and how it reflects in beliefs and in expectations in your life in terms of what's possible. So anchoring this into your heart, but then I'm parceling this and we're linking into your brain. And the link is into the limbic brain. And so initially the limbic brain comes in and the priority is to enhance hydration. And the hydration is defined by emotional expression and emotional fluidity. And then we're going to, it's not a secondary matrix, it's a fragmented matrix. So for those that aren't familiar with a matrix in this context, what I'm looking at is it's like an energy that has formed over time that, you know, you could say it's almost like layered beliefs that is distorting a potential in some way. And so, and distorting perspective in some way. So I'm just going to tap into what this is. And it is coming in more so as an attachment. And I just better make notes so I don't lose where I am here. So it's the limbic and it's hydration. And so for those of you that would like to do the hydration technique, if you have water, you are welcome to use a little tissue or your finger if it's clean. And you can put that in your navel, but you can also just do a light to the sides of your brain to represent the limbic brain. So emotional expression. And then going into this fragmented matrix. And it's coming up in the left limbic brain. Sorry, it's just taking me a moment here to okay, so one of the consciousness aspects of the limbic brain is consciousness of right living or dharma. And this is what's coming up for balancing. This is what's coming up in this fragmented matrix. It is an attachment to so-called right living. And because even though that sounds like don't we all want to live a dharmic life? It's the distortion of our own personal beliefs that is inhibiting the most natural expression of that. So that is what's coming up to be cleared, and I'm just going to find out sort of what it's stuck to and drawing energy from. And one area is the myelin sheath, and it's represented by the governing vessel 20, and in a pattern, and I need to go into a little detail on this pattern. And the pattern is like an active memory belief, and it's a BodyTalk heart belief of it's a motivation of it's conditional love. I need to do this to be loved. And so this relates to the perception of doing the right thing. And so that's the lower level, the Pluto, we could say, aspect of revealing the motivations to these actions, as opposed to more of a pure expression of those actions to be loved. So synthesizing that active memory emotional belief through the myelin sheaths, and then also to your sense of sight, balancing to your sense of sight from one of these sort of attachments in this fragmented matrix. And then third area is the nerve supply. And so even though it's a general nerve supply, I'm also getting to your brain stem, into the autonomic control. I'd say it's one of the centers of control of your autonomic nervous system in the brain stem. And there's a definition here of control and controlled behavior. Further definition on that is like inhibited behavior. Okay, so that is the fragmented matrix balancing in the left limbic brain. And so I'm going to parcel those two items, and then I'm going to go into the next part of the formula. So this takes me into your third eye chakra and its association with your pituitary gland. In a way, you could say that it really, the third eye chakra governs the pituitary gland, but it's that association. And what's coming in is the masculine feminine balance of the third eye chakra. And within this balance is like a consciousness of wholeness and integration. And there's a further definition here of being at peace. And so there's really this, I just have to share more because it's related to the patriarchal structures, social structures, and at the broader level, but then also then how that has filtered down to more of the personal level. And so this balancing between that masculine and feminine energies in relation to this. So it's the perception of that this is patriarchal, and by labeling that, how that becomes like an oppression. And so it's to shift those beliefs about that, and how that then creates this, by shifting, more harmony and holistic function within the third eye chakra, within the pituitary gland. And then I drop down into the physical level of hormones and your neuroendocrine system, and into the sex hormones. So it's like the manifestation of the shift in these beliefs, and the integration of that masculine and feminine, and how that expresses itself in more harmony within your neuroendocrine system. So staying within the chakra system, from your third eye chakra right into your root chakra. The another aspect that Capricorn and Saturn are related to is your skeletal system. So like very much your bones. When you think, it's in a way, it's easy for me to remember that, just because when I think about Capricorn, I think of structure. I think of earth and things that are supportive. And so we're linking into the root chakra, which relates to our stability and our structure in life and life's framework. So there's this sort of mirroring with this root chakra and the consciousness aspects within your skeletal system. And so I'm not sure where we're going here. I just know that that's where we're going. So there's something about your adrenals and your fight, flight, freeze, and that relationship with your skeleton, your bones. I'm not clear on what that is, but I'm just going to keep observing. So there's the word that just keeps coming up it's destabilizing. And so stressors, and we'll probably get more details on what those are possibly, but how those stressors and then how they cascade through your adrenaline, adrenals, and then how that impacts your bones and the homeostasis and the rebuilding of your bones. I'm not, again, 100% clear on what that relationship is, but I'm trusting that kidney, fear and bones. Thanks, Sheila. I love that every time I do these sessions, I'm like, I know that everybody's like sort of bringing their pool of wisdom for me to draw, and I'm like, I know it's all there. So I appreciate that. So Sheila is a TCM, traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, as well as a body talker. So thanks, Sheila. I appreciate that. So the kidney and bones, yeah. And so kidney adrenals, kidney bones. So there's that relationship of that destabilizing, again, coming into that whole autopiosis of the mechanism of the continual sort of breakdown and rebuilding of of your osteoclast and osteoblast, of your bones, and the relationship here. So now we're going to go into what about that, other than already observing for shifting, wants greater balance. So this, how this comes up is an external, like a general environment in BodyTalk. We use the technique general environment. We're looking at something externally, and then how that's impacting you. Although, you know, at a deeper level, we understand that it's because we have some beliefs or expectations that are actually creating that, that response or reaction. So, but for our purposes here, yeah, we want to look outward. And so what is coming up in the external environment is other people's fear. Other people's fear as an impact. So it's very much, it's like media, social media, at that broader level, but then into even your closer sphere. So that's what's coming up for balancing through the pelvis, through, and then to the root aspect of your root chakra. So it's like the most root aspect of your root chakra, balancing in that area, and then linking within the root chakra to the solar plexus chakra, and to its quality of power, and also its digestive, like I'm getting like the sun, you know, solar plexus. So that sun's vitality, that sun's energy, and being able to, the power within that, the power within you, within your root chakra. So connecting into that power. And so then I'm linking out into your minor hip chakras and into their natural consciousness. So the natural consciousness of our hip chakras, like our hips are, you know, one of the things that support our upper body. They have a number of meridians that run through them that, you know, relate to the expression of our hips in our stability and our feeling secure and trusting in life. These are the natural expressions within the hip chakras. That's the end of this first formula. So we're actually going to go back to the limbic brain. So if you'd like to, you're most welcome to join me with your hands over the sides of your head, cradling to focus on the limbic brain. And the first balancing, coming into that consciousness of separation, balancing, anchoring to individuation in relation to the polarity of limitation and resourcefulness, and helping to shift that, for helping to shift seeing and using challenges in a new way, in being able to use your resources, then linking into hydration of your limbic brain for more flow of emotional expression, and then shifting and really clearing out that consciousness attachment within the limbic brain, and from a variety of areas within that, about right living or dharmic living, and helping to broaden that from that fear of not being loved And linking that into your third eye chakra, the masculine feminine balancing, and how that then balanced in the more physical expression of your androgen sex hormones, and then finally into this balancing on your root, your real root center and kidney energy, and your bones and your skeletal support. Okay, what's next? So the next part, there's a focus on focus. So, oh, big yawns, great. So it's, yeah, it's like what's ahead of me? What's in front of you? And helping, this, so it's really helping to highlight those Capricornian qualities of being able to have a clear focus and staying on task. It's coming up in a holistic way, though, in that it's like, it's not, it's not so clear that it's narrow. It's being able to see while also taking and integrating what also comes along. So it's not a limitation here. It's definitely moving ahead, but also being able to continue to take in as you progress and stay within whatever that focus is for you, or a variety of focuses. So let's go into this. I think that there's, for each of you, there's going to be a variety, this is going to apply very differently. But it's the clarity of, and, not only focus, but when we think about like the actual act of I'm focusing in on something, that can relate to our eyesight. It can also, not only relating to goals, but also to be able to clear out clutter in a way. What is not serving my clarity in seeing what's right in front of me? Perhaps, things that I haven't wanted to look at, whatever it is. So let's just see, it's like a bigger, or let's hear, or let's feel, not to limit it to sight. Okay, so there is a big rock that just showed up, and it's quite cold and it's kind of wet, and I don't even want to go near it. So anyway, I'm just going to stand back and observe this rock when it comes to focus. Okay, so within that, Chiron comes in, the wounded healer. So Chiron is I think it's a planet. I haven't studied a lot about Chiron, but I understand that it is part of its archetypal quality is that it represents the wounded healer. So, for many healers, it can be strong. It can be a strong influencing energy. So Chiron is coming in this big sort of, so when I see this big rock, it's like some kind of block in some way. It may not be. I don't want to limit the possibilities of what this rock is, but then Chiron comes in. So I'm just going to have a sip of my tea and see what Chiron. Okay, I'm just going to tune in here. Is there a language? Because I'm getting a lot of visuals, but I'm just looking for the correct correct language for this balancing. So within the Chiron energy, a consciousness aspect is coming up, and it's a consciousness. It's a victim consciousness. And there is a lot of grief. There's a definition of grief in relation to this victim archetypal energy and consciousness. Okay, so what's coming up is vibe axis of this, the relationship of this archetypal energy of this victim consciousness and this definition of grief to you. And so when I say it's a vibe axis is like an energy link and our relationship. I think back to the birth vibe axis, which is like where we were born, the exact moment. And there was nothing else on earth that was the same as that moment. So it has a pretty strong energy personally. So when we're looking at this relationship with this archetypal energy, it's that part of you that relates to that victim consciousness and the grief about that, that wants to shift. And so when I say it wants to shift, I'm just going to give you a visual because that's how it's coming in. So it's like if you're looking or your relationship is this way, all of a sudden the perspective needs to change and you're going to move over here. Because if I actually move over here, I'm going to see this and experience this in a different way, in a new light. And so that's how it's coming up. So there's the vibe axis. I may have to get more details on this, and I am. So in between this relationship, you hear this archetype here is like some kind of fulcrum or something. So that's what I have to go into. And it's a heart balancing. Okay, so when I go into the heart, I go into 8th chakra. 8th chakra, portal to the past. It can be ancestral past. It can be past lives or future lives. And so there's an ancestral at the level of cultural sorrow that is coming in for balancing, that is held here to be shifted so that this relationship can change. So this ancestral sorrow is all the victims in the past and the pain. And so it's helping to honor that, but also to observe it for shifting this in your heart. So and there is a satellite to the subtle sense of hearing. And anchoring the subtle sense of hearing into individuation. So when I'm talking about the subtle sense of hearing, it can be your clairaudience. So how you're perceiving at an extrasensory level through that particular sense. And so when we're balancing to individuation, one of our senses, our subtle senses, is to help to clear emotional triggers or prejudgments, expectations that distort that sensory perception. What can also, and how it's come up for me in sessions, is that it's also our thinking about things, which relates to our beliefs and our own thoughts. And so this is also about helping to shift and clear how those can distort and how they can hold emotional triggers that can actually impede that subtle sense from being more in the present time and more receptive with more clarity. So this is coming up around this, and that we're balancing this within your heart. There's this quality of being able to listen to your heart. So being able to tune in more to your heart within this whole balancing. And so we're going to tap this in now. You can just getting hand positions as a priority here. And so it's both hands over your heart. And then taking one hand and putting it over your belly, as we're balancing this 5-axis and the emotions in relation to this 5-axis, and then into the sorrow, the ancestral victims, helping to bring that through the heart to the diaphragm, to the intestines for processing. So I'm just, as I'm tapping this in, I'm going back to, the what I thought was the theme of focus. And then it took us right into this balancing. So it must have something to do with focus. I don't know what it is, but it always, whatever comes up, I trust. I'm just going to tap in and see if there's anything else I'm feeling that we're coming to the end of the session. So I'm not getting another balancing per se, but the image that I just keep getting is like seeing a candle in your heart, seeing a candle in your heart and lighting up your heart. That warmth and, could be for the holidays, could be for those ancestrals. I'm not really sure, whatever that holds meaning for you. So you may wish to light a candle for the wounded part of yourself and being able to heal and shift and start to change that relationship for the next part of your journey. So that is our session for today. And the final session from me for this year. And I've traditionally, and because my Capricorn is strong right now, probably do this, traditionally have done a New Year's session. I don't do it on New Year's Eve. I do it like just a day or two after the new year to, set the tone and see what wants to shift, but also just a wonderful way to join together and start the new year off on a healing and positive light. So speaking of light, thank you all for sharing your light with me, and wishing you all the very best over the holidays as well as into 2023. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Yes, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. Thank you. Yeah, you are very, very welcome. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.